Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and my guest today is Victor Galindo. He has been on quite a journey, and I can't wait to share his story. He is really feeling called at this time to kind of bridge the gap between religion, spirituality, seeking, science, and help us all make sense of what God is, what our path is, and open the door and create connections so people can better understand how it all fits together. Because there's no one right path. Everybody's got to follow their own path. So welcome, Victor, and thank you for joining me today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Before we deep dive into what's happening in your current life, I would love to share a little background story on you. And when you sent your bio to me, I found this so fascinating. You said at the age of 4 or 5, you remember telling your mom that you wanted to be a monk in the Himalayas.
Yes.
That really struck me for so many reasons. But can you tell me a little bit about that? How did that come about? And what was that feeling for you?
I remember as a child, I just had a strong, deep urge I cannot explain to want to go to the Himalayas and pray. And I don't know where a child that's 4 or 5 years old would get such an urge.
Maybe a past life.
Yeah, I've come to find definitely that it was definitely something that I have walked or traversed before. And I do remember very strongly telling my mom was like, "A monk that prays all day, Mima?" And I was like, "Yeah, Mom, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be when I grow up."
So amazing that at that age, you're already feeling called to do that.
Of course, I traversed away from it there for a while, but it was definitely something I was linked to in my past, in a past life.
A carryover, maybe.
Yes.
We're so open when we're young children. It's almost like the veil is still non-existent. There's just still we're so open, there's such a bleed through. So
Yes.
I'm surprised if you're having memories of doing that in your past life, perhaps. I don't know.
I remember when I came to the realization, and I was reading the autobiography of a yogi, and the very opening chapter, Yogananda starts speaking about when he was young and little, and the first thing he says is he has clear, distinct memories of being a monk in the Himalayas, and it was
really.
It was instantaneous. It hit me like a memory because I had forgotten about it. And the memory just came to the front of my brain, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I came to tears, and I was like,
"Right.
Do you remember this?" It was like it all connected for me right then and there. That was
so powerful.
Very powerful. It had me in tears. I'll tell you that much.
When truth hits you hard, there's just this knowing, this true knowing for yourself and your entire being. And no one can tell you otherwise because it's for you. It's a feeling so strong and visceral.
Yes, ma'am.
Nobody can tell you that that's not true.
No one.
Because your soul knows it. Right?
You feel deep. I always feel in my heart. I've always felt deep in my heart.
Definitely. You had so many incredible mentors in your life. You told me that you had an aunt who, from a very young age, started to show you how to work with energy.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have an entire family of gifted women and obviously men in your life that I just admire that so much, that you were able to grow up in that environment of open conversation around energy work, the esoteric things that are unseen, spiritual world. That's such a gift. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit about how that felt for you at the time, what it looked like for you?
When I was young, of course, like you said earlier, you're so open to vacillate between the two, or however many dimensions you're going between. It's just you believe everything that's put in front of you, and especially if it's someone you care about, love, you'll believe anything that they tell you or show you. So it makes it very easy for you to accept the things that are put in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
My aunt, amazing. She was an amazing woman. She didn't have any kids, so she treated me and my sisters like her own. My oldest sister, Veronica, is 12 years older, so she got to experience a lot more of her mentoring because she was at an older age. But she definitely started teaching me how to use or how to work with energy and feel energy. I remember feeling out spots in the body that needed healing, stuff like things like that. I remember feeling the energy between my fingers and my hands. And as a child, I was already so sensitive. I was I was a very, very sensitive child. I felt
it probably came so naturally to you.
Yes,
Right?
it's who I was. It's who I still am. I tried to shut it off through the years, but this is who I started off as.
I think so many people do. I think it's very common in our society for people to be so gifted and so connected, and then realize as the hard knocks of life hit you that because you're so open and so sensitive and you feel so deeply that you need to shut it off.
Yes.
Which we'll get to that soon in our conversation. But I know at the age of 16, that was such a pivotal year for you. You went through so much emotionally. It was like a quantum. I always call these years where they bring you to your knees, like these quantum jump years, because
Yeah.
like your world's ending and it can be so devastating. But in fact, that is the spark and ignition that's actually going to send you on your path back to yourself. And it works so many different ways. People can view it as negative, people can view it as positive, but it seems like 16 was a real pivotal year for you. So if you can share with me where you were at emotionally and what was happening in your life at that time, that can kind of lay the groundwork for our conversation.
Again, here's perspective. At the time at the age of 16, it was ground shaking. It was world ending to me. And in hindsight, my perspective has changed. You're right. It did spark a long walk to where I am now.
Yeah.
From when I was young, I never was in trouble. I never got in trouble with my mother. I never got in trouble with my father. I did everything I was supposed to do. I was in sports. I was honor roll. I was in honored classes.
Wow.
At the age of 16, the first thing that happened was my aunt that had used to work with me. Her name was Martha. She passed away from cancer, and I took that very hard because, like I said, she didn't have any kids, so she treated us like
right.
And almost not even a year later, my grandmother, who I was so super close with, if I can, I'd like to share just one little story of my grandmother.
Of course.
When I was, I think 5, as a matter of fact, it was kindergarten. DARE, which was a program about against drugs. It was "Say No to Drugs" was the slogan. They came to my school and they talked about drugs. They talked about smoking. Well, I'm a 5-year-old who has a very small attention span, so I hear, "Do you know anyone who smokes?" But they were talking about marijuana. And so I'm talking to my friend, I turn, I hear smokes, I raise my hand. "Oh, I know somebody who smokes, my grandma, and she smokes all day long."
Oh my gosh.
So, of course, needless to say, my parents get called and my grandmother gets called and like, no, she smokes cigarettes all day.
Funny. Oh my gosh.
So I learned also in that moment that cancer, you could die from cancer from cigarettes. So here I am, 5 years old, and I don't recall telling my grandma this. I was told this later by my mother. I went up to my grandmother and I was like, Granny, if you die from smoking cigarettes from cancer, I'm going to be very, very sad. And my grandma had smoked, I think she had smoked 30 years or 27 years, something like that. But in that moment, from the words of a child, she quit cold turkey that day.
Oh my gosh.
At night, she had told my mom, she's like, if I go out, it's gonna be because I'm going out to get a pack of cigarettes. But she never did, you know, and so she never passed away from cigarettes, you know. But that was the power of love and her intention and focus.
Wow.
Which I just want to share. That's what kind of woman my grandmother was, and that's who I was around all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I go for it. I come back. Okay, so a year later, my grandmother passed away in a car accident on the way to Fort Davis, and she was young. She was, I think she was 70, close to 70 years old.
Wow.
And that hit me extremely hard on top of it, and I didn't know how to process it this time. And I've always felt everyone. I felt emotions from other people. These are a lot of things I didn't know what I was picking up on at the time. So now I have everyone else, and I have these things that are on top.
So you're carrying not only your own emotions, and there's so many people out there who are sensitive. They say, "Oh, I'm sensitive." No, you're empathic.
Yeah.
They're absorbing the energy of everybody around you. And what's so hard is the lack of awareness on energetic boundaries. So when you have a whole family in mourning and a whole family feeling the loss, you're feeling your pain and the pain of everyone, right?
Yes.
Carrying all of that.
And later I had to learn how to channel this and become aware of it, and become aware that it only becomes me, or it becomes real in my body, once I allow it to. So this was something that I had to learn. I'm now 35 years old. You know, at 16, it was unheard of.
You can't tell a 16-year-old anything, really.
Yeah.
They have to figure it all out on their own. I've raised two boys myself, so you know what that's like on the other side as a parent. So
yeah.
they'll find their way. But so you had a lot of emotional things that you're processing.
Yes. My grandmother passed away, and then that summer of the same year, I broke my knee, I was tied to football and sports and basketball. That was my identity at that time. And that was all ripped away from me at that time too. So now I'm processing this with this free time. And then the first love I had in my life, you know, puppy love, we have a bad breakup, like really bad. So all these things happened within the same year.
Wow.
And that's when I decided I was going to start turning off what I felt for the first time. I didn't even know what I was doing at the time. At the time, I thought I was just having fun, but I just definitely did not want to feel anything that was going on in my life.
It's so easy to say you're just doing something for fun, and it's such a slippery slope. It's such a fast slide into addiction, and it almost happens before you even realize it's happened.
Yes, ma'am.
It's like you kind of blink and you're like, wow, how did I get here?
Yeah. Because you have no concept, you have no idea of what you're dabbling in or what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
All you know is that at that moment, you're taking away the feeling that you're having. Yeah. And that's all you care about at the time.
Mm-hmm. The hard part about that is you are numbing the pain, but you're also numbing the joy.
Yeah.
You numb everything.
It cuts off everything.
Everything, right? Closes you down completely.
Yes.
So that was a real shift in who you were and your identity, right?
Yeah.
You start hanging around different people and doing different things, and you're around a different vibration entirely. We're all about energy, right? So you go from high vibing, academics, sports, achievement, into numbing, and then you're just interacting with a very different demographic of people and energy, which you're absorbing.
I do remember the shift, you know, as I look back, I didn't know what I was experiencing, but now you have words for it. I do remember the shift. I do remember the feeling of the shift. And I do remember myself reprogramming myself to hang out with these crowds.
Really? So it was almost subconscious, like you knew you had to vibe at a different.
Yes, I knew I was coming
to
down.
hang with these people. That's so interesting. You had that awareness, you know?
Yeah, it was. I remember feeling like where I'd feel uncomfortable in situations, uncomfortable, and to them it was normal and it was okay. And I remember feeling uncomfortable in my heart, and I remember having to consciously change it because I definitely wanted to be around these people that could keep me around the things that could keep me from feeling anything at all.
Right.
But even in the moment, I still could feel, and I had to reprogram my brain to accept the things that I was seeing, which I
It's
was.
so interesting how aware you were.
Yeah.
Even in the circumstances, you know, even partying and everything, that you still had this inner knowing that you had to consciously shift your vibration down to hang with these people and accept what was in your reality at the time. That must have been really, really, that's so interesting to me. And if you don't mind, if I share my perspective,
Go ahead.
I feel like every soul comes into this world to experience something. And we put our filters on that and our judgments on that, whether that's a good something or a bad something, based on what we're seeing and feeling ourselves emotionally around it, right?
Yes.
I really feel like every soul comes in to have certain experiences, and those experiences are for them alone, and it's for their soul growth. And there's something that they take from that experience. So I know that it's a tall order, but I would really love for people to stop judging the path of another.
Yeah.
Because it's their path. And it's going to take them where they need to go. And where they've contracted to go and decided to go on a soul level before even incarnating into this life. So I honor your journey and your path. And it took you exactly where you needed to be.
Exactly. And here's the thing too, and I know this from experience too though, but it's so hard for people to empathize with a situation when you have not gone through it. It's a gift to be able to empathize with somebody without going through the exact same scenario that they've gone through, and to be like, I'm okay with that. So if you do have that ability, first off, I want to say you have an extraordinary gift. And number two, we also have to remember, which I had to remember, they've never been through this, and I know they don't know what it's like. And it's because I would do the same thing. Here I am, when people do it to me, I would turn and do the same thing to somebody else because their path was different. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. See, but I've come to that point now to see that you're right, everyone does have their path. And everything is what it is what they say. That's the saying that's going around. It is what it is. I am what I am. And everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to be.
It does.
Yeah. Even though you make choices that could have been different and could have led you to a different timeline, either way you look at it, you're going to come back to where you need to be.
You come back to the exact nexus point at the exact point in time, right on time. And
that's the architectural design. There's no way around it. It's
very
all
much
quickly put together. And one of the things that helped me when I was, we'll get to that. I guess we'll get to that later. But I had read a book, and it was called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. I don't know if
oh my gosh, I love that book.
Yeah, and this
good, right?
Definitely liberated me as far as when he's talking about how when he was seeing his life in the hologram, and he could see that everything happened exactly. He had no judgment he didn't feel guilty for anything.
Right.
He saw that it played its part in life, in everyone else's life, and it did exactly what it was aimed to do. And he was back with the source. And I remember that putting me in tears too.
That book was so awesome. If you have not read this book, people, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers, it's so interesting and it's so powerful.
Yes.
And what I love about those books is the people who connect to their relatives who have passed or whatever, a lot of times they're just bubbling through life. Like they're in grief, they're in pain. The last thing they think they're going to be able to do is connect to somebody who has crossed over, as particularly a very close loved one. And it comes as a complete surprise and shock.
Oh, yes.
A lot of times it's like, what am I seeing? And this cannot be happening. But guess what? It is. And this book was really a great read. So I'm so glad you read that. That was a good one.
Yeah, that was actually the first book I read to my spiritual awakening. To break down
Really?
To break down a lot of walls that I had with dogma and religion that I had put up. I didn't even know I had put up, but I had definitely put up.
Right. You've been on such an incredible journey. So let's kind of dial back. And at the age of 19, you were incarcerated for the first time.
Yes, ma'am.
And boy, you must have had so many emotions going on inside of you when you walked through those, walk through that to your cell, and we're like, okay, this is real.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
This is real. This is no joke.
Yes. I remember being conscious even then to have to dial down again and able to be able to survive in there.
In that time. Vibration, right? And we talk about that's probably the densest, the lowest vibrational energy you can be immersed in.
Especially when you can feel everybody.
That's what I'm saying, right? It's like, I mean, you can get taken down so quickly if you're in that space, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Surrounded by people who are just vibing really well.
Yes.
I mean baseline, like super low. That must have been
survival, like the base chakra. Yeah, it's survival. That's where they're vibrating. Everyone is, and you find yourself pulling yourself there to survive because you think that's the only way you can survive. But yeah, when I was 19, I was incarcerated. Like I said, I do remember lowering my vibration again to survive and changing the way I thought about things again. Because I did so, I pulled into my experience a lot of dark things, and I saw a lot of dark things.
Of course.
But by this point, I'm already starting to get hardened. My heart is becoming hardened. My thoughts are not of anything but myself at this time. So when I walk out of there, I definitely walk out way worse than I did walking in.
Yeah, and you start closing yourself off just to survive, right?
Oh yeah, you have to.
Completely.
I thought you had to at that time.
Right.
And if you're going to survive on a 3-dimensional plane, yes, you're going to have to. If you learn how to transcend, which we'll get into later, then you can go a different route. But
that's all you knew. You were doing what you felt you needed to do.
Mm-hmm. Intelligent. I was trying to use my intelligence. And my intelligence told me you better adapt to this quickly or get swallowed up. So I did.
Yeah. And you had, quite a few years in and out, sounds like, back and forth, addiction, life happens. What was that like for you navigating that time? It was a lot of years. It was a lot of years of struggle and probably darkness. And what was that like for you? How did you survive it? How did you navigate that? You didn't have a lot of tools, the tools you have now. So how did you do it, man?
I was very 3-dimensional. It was very hard. It was very, very hard because things would turn back. Whenever I'd get locked up and go back to the penitentiary and everything would turn back on, I would have to start dealing with this again. But I was exactly where I was when I was 19 years old. So I stopped progressing at the age of 19 mentally and spiritually. I actually stopped progressing spiritually at the age of 16 and definitely stopped progressing mentally at the age of 19. So here I am, a 19-year-old boy in a man's body, walking around with no concept or idea of how to be a man. And not for lack that my dad didn't show me everything I had to do. It's just I had lost myself. I had lost who I was. And in my mind, in my thoughts, I thought there was no coming back from that. And so it was like, okay, so how do I navigate what I have now? So that's where I was at that point. That's what I was doing. I was trying to learn to live a life that was not mine and never was meant for me, and to vibrate and learn how to navigate the best I could in the lowest vibration I could stay at.
It's so hard, right? And what's so hard too is, this is my perspective, and you can correct me if you disagree, but it feels to me like we have an internal compass and GPS of who we are on a soul level. There's an internal drive. There's like an internal hard drive that has all the programming that tells us exactly who we really are. Not who we think we are, but who we really are. And when we get into these life situations and we start drifting off course and out of that alignment, the more extreme our world is rocked.
Yes.
It feels like the further out of alignment we go, the harder you're going to get slammed to get the message, right? By the universe. And it keeps coming back around like a broken record, and you keep responding the same way, and guess what? Boom, there it is again. Oh, you respond the same way, you're going to cycle back around. Boom, there it is again, but a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more extreme, you know. So it feels like you're just a little bit in that groove where your soul was trying to redirect you back, but you weren't ready to receive that knowing yet. Yet is the key word there.
Yes, I wasn't having it at that time. No.
You're like, no, I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to pay attention to my internal GPS. What do they know? You know, I'm going over here.
Internal GPS. That means I have to even to acknowledge any of that. I have to turn on. I sort of have to turn on things that I've been trying to turn off for so long.
Right.
And that was not.
It also becomes kind of a. You get in the habit. Our behaviors are habits, right? They're like programs that we create, and whether they're negative or positive, we adapt to those programs. So it just becomes a way of being, and it becomes subconscious even. Like we're not even aware that we are subconsciously sabotaging ourselves or putting ourselves in these consistently bad situations, right? It's like not conscious awareness. You're like, why is this happening to me so many times, right? That's a victim mindset, right?
And so it's just, exactly what I was, the victim. I was a victim of everything during that time. And my sister, Veronica, who was another very, very powerful woman in my life.
Yes.
Which I have so many. She would try to explain to me these things. Victor, I'd be like, how am I bringing this into my creation? What are you talking about? You think I want this? You think I want to be behind bars? You think I want to be on the streets? You think I want these things? And she's like, and she tried to explain to me, but I just was not.
You weren't ready to hear the message. You weren't ready to own the truth.
But she had planted each one of those seeds along the way, which we'll get to how they sprouted, through time. Because, yeah, we'll get to that later, how it sprouted through time.
I just want to give a shout out to Veronica. Her sister, she's a friend of mine. She is the epitome of a light being.
Always has.
About somebody who just radiates light and love. That's Veronica.
She's always been like that too.
You're so blessed to have her in your life, with all the other people in your life. And she led me to you. So it was all by perfect design. I'm so excited that we get to have this conversation today. But I digress. Let's go back. to you navigating all these years. So there was this big gap. I don't know how many years of struggle.
Yes.
Kind of you just trying to survive. You had a son. I don't know. Do you have more than one child or?
I have two kids.
2 kids. How old are they?
8 and 6.
8 and 6. Okay, cool. So you just had a lot on your plate. You had a lot to process, and you were very much in that survival mode. Survive. Do what I need to survive, but I also don't want to feel.
Yes.
So it's like, I got to survive. I don't want to feel. I'm going to keep partying, but I have these kids. I mean, there's just a lot of growing up that has to happen here, and a lot of things to navigate. So.
Okay. So let's fast forward, and I'm going to share with you, I didn't put on my bio. At the age of 26, I believe, I finally came to a place where, okay, I need something outside of myself besides me to kind of pull me back to where I need to be. And my sister Veronica had set me up with a place. And it was almost like a rehab, but it was like Christian based. And there I experienced for the first time the source and coming back to him. And I won't get into too much detail, but it was Christian. It was a Christian based thing, but I was by myself in the room meeting with God. And it was amazing. And I was like, I knew, when you have that feeling like this is what. So I start taking this path, but at the time Christianity didn't give me much more tools besides, the beginning steps. And so I never got to reprogram anything in my brain. So no matter what kind of experience you have, just like people in the Holy Scriptures, they would see Jesus, or any Holy Scripture, they would see him heal or bring people back from the dead, and still they would go back to their lives and the way they lived. Why?
Not understanding that's showing you the way.
Yeah. Well, that's just something that he did. It was not, they don't understand that you have to reprogram the way you think. And that's in Holy Scripture as well. It's like, don't be conformed to the world, but be renewed but renew your mind, so you have to renew the mind. This is something that's said through all the Holy Scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, all these different things through Buddhism. They all have the same exact, almost the
same principles, but people are not really fully aware of what that means.
Yes.
Reading the words, but you're not embodying the message.
You're not embodying the message. It's an unconscious way. It gives you a way to do things unconsciously, like to reprogram yourself unconsciously. And it's there, but then along that comes with it is the dogma and the religion and the things that Jesus or Buddha or whoever, or the Yogananda, they tried to break. It was like, let these things go and realize that God is within you and always has been. You're a piece of the infinite, and you always will be a piece of the infinite no matter what you do. And then to go further, the science of how the brain works with the spirit in the quantum and how that all comes together. And that was my game changer, which we'll get to later. So I digress.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's like ding, ding, ding. It all makes sense much later, right?
Yeah. So
you were exposed to Christianity. Was it Christianity? What was it?
Yes, it was non-denominational Christianity. I grew up Catholic, but I never partook in anything. I was there.
Resonated with that.
I was there, yeah, but I never connected because I just never did.
So how long did you embrace that Christian type of message, and what happened after that?
Okay, for a long time, because there's truth in it. There's truth in all of them, and I embodied it so from 25. Okay, I went back. I ended up messing up. Okay, this is another pivotal point. So I decide I'm going to get out of Odessa, and I go to Seattle, Washington. And while I'm in Seattle, Washington, I cannot tell you his name, and I wish I could remember. My sister got me tickets, again, Veronica, to it was about self-healing. And it was at Bastyr University, which is a little north of Seattle. And I went. And when I went, he spoke. For the first time I heard things like, what you put your focus upon is what you're going to draw into your experience. And this terminology, these types of things. And he talked about like virtual reality in yourself. Like before you go to bed, run through your mind everything that you wish to experience or bring into the next day or the next month or so. So I took these things and I blindly went and started using them.
So you got some really interesting tools from that.
And I went back home to Odessa and I started saying, you know what, I want to go to college. Because for the longest time I would say, I'm a convict. I've got felonies. I can't get a good job. And I would just
you get really defined by your past and your story, right?
Yes.
That instead of creating the future, you keep identifying with the past.
So I started using these tools, and sure enough, I got a full grant. I'm going to the Art Institute of Seattle for audio engineering.
That's awesome! Really, that is so cool.
They probably paid for my housing, for everything. Everything
Wow.
was first just delivered, and I was practicing these things. When I got there, so I went on that far side of the spectrum, on the opposite side of religion and Christianity. And when I got to, everything kept unfolding, and I drew amazing people who I still talk to this day into my life, who are almost on the same path. We've almost all come full circle. But that was a good time in my life. And I stopped practicing those things though. I stopped using, and I just allowed, since I gained everything I was trying to at that time, I just released back into unconsciousness. And I met a girl there in college, and we had our son. And I ended up having a charge from 4 years earlier that they finally indicted me on, and they had to bring me back to Texas, and I had to go to the penitentiary again.
Oh man.
So, and I had letters of
recommendation. I spanked you hard.
Yeah, I had letters of recommendation from the dean of school, from the head of audio. They wrote letters, and the judge was like, no. He just looked at my sheet, and he was like, no, you're coming back. So I had to break lease. I had to leave school, leave my internship.
Heartbreaking.
With a new baby.
Oh.
And I brought, who I was with, I brought her down as well. I went in, and things didn't go very well between me and her. And when I came out, I tried to go back. I did go back, and I got back into my internship, finished my school. I was finishing my school, and I was about to be hired on by the company I was interning for, doing what I love to do. And another pivotal moment, she was going to try to leave with my son, because she was from Georgia, I was from Odessa. And I said, no way. So long story short, I ended up leaving back to Odessa with my son. And we fought the custody battle from there. When I returned back to Odessa, there's somebody there at the house, which my parents are always having gatherings. And my sister's there, and there's someone there, and he's staring at me. What is he staring at? He's like, I need to work with him right now. And he's like, Victor, would you mind stepping outside with me? And I was like, okay. And his name is Lawrence. And I was like, okay, Lawrence. He steps outside. He's like, listen, I'm a water intuitive. And I'm already like,
what?
He's like, I want to read you, and I want to speak with you about what's going on. I said, okay. And at this point, I'm broken. All my dreams again that I had, my identity that I had created for myself again were gone. And so he sat me down, and he started telling me things that nobody knows. He told me things like, do you mumble a lot? And I was like, always have. Like, I just started speaking really fast, and I mumble, which I have to remind myself to slow down. And he started talking about things like, well, it's because your DNA doesn't come from this planet, it comes from off this planet. And at this time, it was like, oh, wow.
Did you start to back away slowly? Like, yeah, I'm not ready to hear this.
Yeah.
But you know what? I bet you on a soul level, you could feel like the truth of some of the stuff he's saying. Like,
it could, but it was definitely like, especially from Christianity to this, it was like, whoa, that's the doctrine, the dogma.
It's a big gap to jump.
The gap to jump that I had to deal with by myself with no help besides me, the infinite or the cosmos or whatever the UG is what I call it, the universal. To bridge this gap. So
yeah.
So he sat me down and I experienced for the first time. So he's like, Victor, I have to do a cleansing on you. He told me all these things. I couldn't tell you the terminology because I don't know. But he started doing the cleansing on me, and immediately I'm staring at the moon and I see the grid system in the sky. And I'm like, and I've had these experiences from drugs, not to tell you. I'm going to tell you the truth because I want to make a correlation of a drug called DMT, and which is produced in the brain and in every living organism, and it's released when you're born and when you die in big amounts. I call it I think it's the lubrication between the spiritual from the physical to the spiritual. Anyways, I had the same exact experience.
So you're sober. You're not doing drugs.
Totally sober. I'm 100% sober. And I look up into the sky. I see the grid system. I see the hole open, and I feel my body go through. And I can feel the G-force on my body.
Oh my gosh, this is so radical.
It pushes me down. It almost feels like someone pushes you down the bow, And I come down, and when I come to the other side, I see people I know. I don't know that I know them. I mean, I know that I know them, but I don't recognize who they are. And they speak with me, and they're like, Victor, this is, they let me know everything is exactly what it is. And this is the first time I heard
it. So it's almost like you go through the veil and you're connecting with your spiritual team, your guides almost. It was like this moment of time happened. This portal opened, created by this gentleman doing a clearing on you energetically, and you were able to connect. And it's probably seconds. It's probably so fast, but it's like you get this download of information like in seconds. Right?
They're trying to tell me that there was no, at the time it was like, I was not accepting it. They were telling me there's no right and there's no wrong. And I was like, what? So I was like, no, absolutely not. There is a right and a wrong, and there's a hell and there's a heaven. If you sin, you're going to go to, and I was in this hardcore mode. So when I come
you were
back,
really resisting. You had a lot of your inner conflict because you had this real Christian dogmatic belief system that you were navigating, and then you're having this mind-blowing cosmic experience, and the two at your heart, you can't reconcile the two. So
there's the gap.
I can't deny you had that experience because you were totally sober when it happened.
Yeah, totally sober.
So there's that.
So I come back from that, and I still can't deal with my emotions, my pain, I still can't deal with those things. So I go to work in Odessa, but I'm bitter. I have resentment in my heart towards this woman. I have resentment in my heart that I'm not in Seattle, the place I love. And I start working in the oil field, on the oil rigs. And I hurt my back. And the first thing they give me is an opiate.
Oh gosh, so it sends you right back, right? 2 seconds.
Immediately. And it was like, all my I still had to reprogram anything in my brain. So as soon as that chemical hit my brain, it was like I never stopped because I never reprogrammed anything different into that space. So, needless to say, I went back down that road again. Went to the penitentiary again. When I come out, before this, I have my daughter. And this was in a bad time. I have my daughter in a bad time in my life. And by grace, my parents stepped in with my daughter and helped me out. And I'm so thankful for them as well to step up to the plate to help me when I was down and out. And when I end up coming out, I dabble back down, I fall back down again, and my parents don't know what to do. And finally, I stopped. When I would do these things, I would stop talking because I didn't want to hurt nobody. I didn't want to be around, so I would not come around. And I didn't want to deal with anything that was tied, because when I talked to them, everything would come to me, all my emotion. Everything would turn on, even if I was high or whatever it was. It doesn't matter. It would turn on. It's so powerful. It'd overcome anything that I'd taken. So I finally, one day, tired, called my mom, and she's like, there's this place called Teen Challenge. It's a year long. And I was like, oh, no. No way. She's like, okay, well, then goodbye. And I was like, oh, wait. I was like, okay. So this is a pivotal play. This is, I'm 30 years old now. And I come to this place a year long, and I'm thinking, man, good Lord, a year, blah, blah. And in this place, another Christian base, but it also gives you discipline. It also teaches you all these different things of life, how to balance. They give you money management classes. They teach you how to balance.
All these life skills are taught. And is that in Texas, or where were you?
This is worldwide. Teen Challenge is worldwide. This one is in Midland, but they have them everywhere in the world.
So you make a commitment to go for a year.
Yes, ma'am. And I go, and I have time. Again, the blessing is that I have this time set apart, and I start to dabble with the UG again. I get to speak with him on a meditational level because I have all day to do that. And they put me in a surrounding where that's where it is, where they're tapping into the infinite through a vehicle, through the Christian vehicle, which is, like I said, everything has truth and meaning. There's just some things that get lost along the way. So within that year, I learned a bunch of life skills, and I've learned that I have a better understanding of what they call it, the infinite, the UG, God, the source, the quantum, whatever name you want to put on him or on the entity of it, whatever it is, whatever he is, which is he is infinite. I have a better understanding. So I come out of there, once again, I have trouble with a woman, which just seems to be a pattern. Which
I was just going to say, this is a pattern in your life.
So I had been, at that point, I had been a year and a half without doing any drugs. Doing really well, fell right back in. Took only a month for that to say, okay, no, that's not happening. And I got locked up, stayed locked up. The first year, just kind of like, well, I'm not even going to go back to Christianity now. I'm just going to go wing it. Let's just see what I can figure out. The second year, I'm like, I tell my sister, I finally write my sister. Oh my goodness. Can you see me?
I lost you for a sec.
Okay. I finally write my sister, and I tell her, I'm ready. Send me some stuff. And I didn't know
This is last year, right?
Yeah. And I didn't know what I was invoking.
He's talking about Marconics energy.
Yeah.
Sister is a practitioner, as am I. And I think that's really interesting that you were nudged to go ahead and reach out to her and ask her to start sending you energy. So you were still incarcerated, you're still locked up. What prompted you to do that? What was it that got you? That was a pivotal moment, even if it didn't feel pivotal at the moment.
I had a release. Okay, me and my father have had a rough go at it. He forgave me in the quantum. He forgave me, and he didn't even tell me, and I knew it. I felt it.
Oh, wow.
It was probably about.
That makes me want to cry.
It's probably about 100,000 pounds of everything that I really wanted coming off of me. You know. I looked up to my dad so much, and it was something I very much needed for him to let go of and to forgive.
I am like I knew I should have brought a tissue to this interview. I'm gonna cry right now. Oh my gosh.
When that happened, it was it went through I felt it through all dimensions, and it hit me to the cellular level, and I felt it, and that was the beginning. That's where it happened. Once he forgave me, truly, without telling me, and this is how I knew, because when I would be locked up, he would never talk to me on the phone. He would never write. He would never. And now, when I would call home, he would get on the phone and he'd be like, "Hey, son, how you doing?" And he showed that he cared. And I know he always cared. He was just a Mexican. He grew up a Mexican man.
Sure, that's culturally, it's very difficult to show emotion like that, to be vulnerable. But I'm telling you, that is what the power of love can do. And you can unconditionally love your child, no matter what.
Yes.
There's a power in that can transcend and transmute any situation. And it did.
It was, I don't know if it was genetic lineage thing, like with him and his father as well. I'm sure, which I know it was. I don't know. Not that I
don't know, but I know when that happens, everything changes on a quantum level. It changes forwards and backwards through your ancestry and your lineage. There's a ripple that goes out when you can do something that powerful from a place of love. A cycle is broken.
Yeah. He never told me verbally, but I know. And it changed everything. So that's what made me reach out to my sister and say, okay, I'm ready. I was ready for the energy. I was ready for books, for whatever. Send me anything. I was activated. Maybe my DNA was activated. I don't know. Maybe Veronica was already doing work on me before. I don't. I couldn't tell you the perfect work of God, but
what I think is so incredible. Sorry, I'm sniffling because I don't have a tissue. But what I think is so incredible is you agreed to receive energy from her every week.
Yes.
And she would send you a distance energy session every week, which is so cool. And when did you start to feel something was shifting for you?
Almost immediately. So the first month is coming off drugs, and then immediately there's an immediate shift. She started working on me like on Thursday night at 11 o'clock. I'd lay flat on my back and she would do remote sessions. And then that's when the first book came in, was the Afterlife of Billy Fingers. And that lifted again. It was in correlation with what was happening with me and my father and all these things, and myself, my forgiving of myself, and realizing that everything is just what my ancestors or spiritual team or whoever it was, they told me, there's no right, there's no wrong. You're doing everything's happening exactly the way it's supposed to happen. Chill out. Quit beating yourself up.
That's the truth, right? If people only realize that everything, remove the filter around it. It's an experience. It's a soul growth. Take the lesson, move forward. Take the lesson, move forward.
Move forward.
It's not something to get attached to, stuck in. It's not a punishment.
No.
It's an experience, right?
It is not a punishment. It is a blessing.
It's a blessing.
It is beyond a blessing.
Those struggles are the blessings, but those people feel like a curse, It really is the blessing that moves you forward in life. And you put that experience in your path. You chose it.
Yeah.
You chose it to go to the next, stepping stone, the next place.
The next ascension.
The next level of ascension, whatever it is. So how long did you receive energy from her?
I want to say a solid 6 months, maybe. Until finally I was vibrating to a place where it was like she was busy, too, but I was vibrating at a place where I was good where I was at. I started reading like crazy. I became, like I said, I clicked on everything inside of me, clicked on, and I realized I started learning how we learn, how the brain works on a scientific level, how everything works, the programming of the brain, and how we program it, and how we bring into our experience everything through our thoughts and emotions and what we focus upon. And immediately as I started learning these things, the correlation started coming to me from scriptures, from the Holy Scriptures, where I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what Jesus was talking about, or this is what Buddha was talking about, or I started making the correlation. I started having the neural pathways for firing back and forth. And that's what was really an aha moment for me. It was like, they do know what they're talking about. Because there was a time when I don't know if I believe any of this anymore. I don't know if I believe any of this or anything they say.
So you didn't really have to walk away. You could take those principles that resonated, make sense of them, and incorporate them in your spiritual practice and your inner knowing, right?
It's all there. It's all written down. Now, I stick to what Jesus says in the Bible, and that's what I stick to. Or any master you could tell who's ascended to their words, because their words are very powerful and they're very cryptic. But now science is catching up.
It is. That's the beautiful thing. I'm loving that. I'm loving the correlations, so that people who are very scientific and linear in their thinking can see that the messages that we in the esoteric world are sharing aren't that far off.
Yeah.
There's a truth to what we're saying and where we are.
Yes.
We're in a quantum world.
Yeah.
It seems out there. Now science is catching up and showing us that there's a correlation, a very real correlation.
Very real correlation.
Which I love. How are the people around you reacting to you as you are going through this shift? I mean, you share space with other individuals.
That's what we came back. So as I told you before, the first times going in, it was very dark, and I lowered vibrations to get to where I was. There was no stopping the raising of my vibration and my choice to raise my vibration and my choices I made that would keep them there. In doing so, I found myself, and I told Veronica, I don't know if this is because of my Onix work, light worker work, this work, that work, or the rising of vibration as humanity itself, but when I went this time, penitentiary was not the same, and it could be my perspective, of course, but everywhere I went was peace, and everywhere I went, people, as soon as I started speaking about these things, they would light up.
Wow.
Almost like I knew it. I knew there was more than what we had. And there's even more, but everywhere I went, the vibration changed. I had people come up to me later and be like, Victor, as soon as you got here, like, this whole place
something shifted.
And everyone I came in contact with was just open to it. And every city I walked into, and I went all across Texas.
You did get transferred a lot.
And
I don't think that's by accident either.
No, absolutely not. And I got to leave the message, stir them up, and I got
plant a seed
and go to the next place. And usually before, you're worried when you're going to the next place, like, oh my God, here we go into the next place. And at the very beginning stages of all that, and it wasn't that way for me. It was very exciting. And I knew, and I was excited to see that when I got there, it was going to be lined up, because I was like, I know it is. And when I get there, it would be all in line, and it would be beautiful. And it just strengthened my faith even more, and my belief.
What's so incredible is you're actually You're literally a light worker in prison. Like, having this awakening within 4 walls.
Yes.
You didn't have to climb that mountain.
No.
Himalayas.
It
Had to be with yourself, right? It all came back to you.
Yeah.
Didn't matter where you were.
It didn't matter. There's no excuse for where you're at, because if I can, in the depths of the densest of vibration, if I can raise my vibration, and I just have some help, but if you seek and if you want and if you direct your attentions and thoughts and emotions towards it, it will come to you. There's no stopping it. There's nothing that can stop this force. This is God. This is the infinite. You tether to him in this, like, I had this explanation I got this morning in meditation, which was like almost a parable. And I'm going to share it with you real quick.
Please.
In my meditation this morning, I've been learning about the subconscious and the conscious. The conscious mind runs 5% of the day, which is what you focus on. Like, oh, I want to lose weight, but you end up doing all the same things you don't, because 95% of the day, your subconscious, which is your programming of what you've taught yourself, runs. And here's the parable that was given to me, the correlation. The internet, okay. The internet being the UG, the universal God, with infinite knowledge. Except this internet, it has infinite knowledge and infinite. But you connect, you tether to him, and he is a piece of you, and he is you, and he is what makes this iPad go, or you. It makes what makes you go. But here's the programming. When you search something on YouTube, when you search something when you drive somewhere on your maps, when you search on Google, all of a sudden, when you keep searching and keep driving the same exact ways, you have a recommendation bar that comes up, recommended for you. Mm-hmm. All these things, your advertisements are recommended for you and your behavioral patterns and the way you think. This is no different from your subconscious. So this is how it works. So as you search these things all day, which was mine was, every day I was waking up and I'm searching to turn off my emotions, how to turn off my emotions, how to do this, how to stay away from, and guess what? Sooner or later, after a long time, your recommended bar is going to read exactly, this is recommended for you. Boom, brings it up. And consciously, you're saying, I don't want to do drugs anymore. I don't want to do these things anymore. So you click on something that says, this is what I do not want to do. But as life goes, and you start getting your kids ready for school, or you start doing all these things of the day, what happens on YouTube? Whenever you go to YouTube and you stop pressing buttons, all of a sudden it stops. You got a timer, and the timer goes, and it tells you, and it pulls you up to your next recommended, what you've always been watching, what you've always been doing, what you've always been searching for. And it pulls it up automatically, and it's running.
So it's like a metaphor. The internet and the search engines and the recommended for you is a metaphor for your subconscious mind. So that program's always running, even if consciously you're fighting it.
Yeah, it's like, the question is, what does your recommended bar say? You see, there's the thing that they say, you can't hide nothing from God, and that you can't, because you're tethered to him. Everything is on an infinite amount of storage or space in the infinite. And that's why everything you've ever searched in your mind, or everything you've ever imagined or gone towards or tried to envision is always still on memory.
Yes, I also want to take it a step further too, on a quantum level. You're creating timelines with those. You're creating timelines. You're creating lots of timelines, timeline potentials.
See this
realities.
The internet is just a very small. See, what do you think the internet came from? And all these ideas, it mirrors exactly what the creator, a master creator, has made already. We're trying to image it. So you can imagine technology, what it'll be like 100 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, and it's still not going to touch what the universal God has created here in us. We're an amazing machine, a bio machine that's tethered all together by Him, and there's nothing. This is the best thing we can get for our brains to kind of make a jump, but ultimately we can't explain exactly how this works, and how advanced this technology that is.
I think the issue is that each person has to unlock the key themselves.
Oh yes.
Every single person has to get to the place of understanding, and everyone's at a different level of understanding, and they're exactly where they need to be. Every single person is exactly where you need to be. There will come a point in time when you get to a level of consciousness that cannot be explained to anyone who's not in that level of consciousness.
Oh yeah.
Because what your reality is, what your awareness is, what your knowing is in a different harmonic than most people.
Just like when my sister was trying to tell me these things, and it was just like, oof. But now, like I say.
But now you could sit down with her and have a conversation and know exactly what she's talking about.
I remember all the things that she was talking about back then, and they come to me, boom, they hit me in the forehead, and I'm like,
oh, she knows what she was talking about. I wasn't ready to receive that message.
Ready to receive. I couldn't hear it. I wasn't vibrating. I wasn't tuned in on my transmission.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand.
Yeah.
So, with all that being said, I was locked up. This all happened, and I had that whole last year of. I learned how to meditate. I learned how to reprogram through books like Dr. Joe Dispenza, which I don't know.
Oh, his work is fantastic. You know,
oh my gosh.
You align with your purpose. You align with the truth of who you really are. And when you're ready to open your heart and accept it, you will be gifted every book, every, internet link, every mentor is going to come into your life to propel you on the path that you are meant to be on. I mean, it is like magic, but it's not magic. It's just alignment. It's harmonic, energetic alignment with your truth, with you, with yourself.
And I always, you sit and you wonder when you see somebody get out of such a dark place, like, how did you do it? You ask them. The thing is, we're sitting in a place that's infinite, in a time that's infinite, and it's going to be different for every single person. It's going to have the same ground rules as far as if you get in line. My message is, if you get in line with Source, with the UG, you can't stop what's going to happen. You can't stop the information download. You can't stop the awakening, is what they call it, the consciousness. But you have to definitely put your part in. You have to make an attempt, because you have to go. You have to do the work. Yes, you have to. You have to
Stop looking at your, the mirror you have to look yourself in the mirror. You have to own your stuff. You have to forgive yourself. You have to love yourself through it. You have to release it. All those are conscious choices. If we're not willing to do that, we will not be able to reach the level of consciousness that will free you.
And that's what, when I would think of Christianity, I would think of like, okay, I want God to come down here, and I fall down, and I'm going to get back up. And when I get back up, all the work is going to be done.
It doesn't work like that, man.
But this is the image I had. Like,
right.
why am I not receiving this?
Where's the magic? Right?
Yeah, where is that
happening for me?
He does not have God is not a magic wand. You will not wave a magic wand in front of you. You have to.
You got to do the work.
Renew your mind. It's for somebody who's for years and years and years of doing the same thing. Which, here's the good news though, is that it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are, what race you are. All these things are irrelevant.
There's no limits. There's no limitations. This is something that is accessible to everybody. And the main thing is, this is a journey for you, created by you, for you. This does not have anything to do with anyone else.
Yeah.
It's your own personal journey. You don't need to look outside of yourself. You have the answers.
The answers are there.
They're all there.
The power is there. That's the number one thing.
Yes.
For so long, I was reaching externally. I need something else outside of me to help me. And when you do that, it's like a prayer up into the air, which is exactly what it is, a prayer into the air. Once you become consciously aware that what you focus upon, the energy that you put out in your emotion, when they all align together with source, that you have the power. This was the gift that God gave you, that you have the power within you to change your destiny, to change who you are and change your path.
It all comes back to you, right?
It comes back to you. See, for so long, it was blaming. Everyone wants to blame God because it's so much easier. It's so much easier to be like God, or when my grandmother died, or when my aunt died, or when I broke my leg and I didn't have football no more, or this or that. And it's so easy to do that. But when it comes down to it, it was how you reacted to every single one of those things. Nothing else besides that. Nothing changed except your perception. Yeah, and the way that you looked at it. So once you looked at it and you felt negative about it and you focused on it in emotion and you pulled it into your experience, you asked for it. Passively, you're praying. You're praying all day, every day. You're praying through your thoughts and your emotions. And people don't understand that. All day you're praying, and what you think about and what you focus upon and your emotions on it is what you're going to get sooner.
And that's the difference of conscious living and being unconscious.
Yes.
Conscious, you create drama, you create negativity, you create self-doubt, you question your worthiness, you question your gifts, you question why you're here. You become a victim of your life.
Yep. And people don't want to acknowledge that, because if they have acknowledged that, they have to realize that
they created every single thing.
And that's something that's really hard for somebody.
It's hard. It is so hard to accept. This is when you realize that you created every single thing, you realize you can actually change and create magic.
Yes.
Created all this other stuff, once you shift your perspective and let go of that victim mindset and step into empowerment and claim your truth and your path and your light and what you're here to do, it's like magic.
It's the misuse of the misuse of the technology we were given, and then the right use of the technology that was put within us. And once you realize that you are, like you said, it's magic. It's like,
it is magic, man.
This whole time, I remember when I had my moment in there, I came to my knees like, oh, Victor, you had this the whole time. And I was like, Victor.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so glad that you turned that corner and that you were open to receiving energy work from your sister and open to reading and expanding your mind and your consciousness and your knowledge. And what do you feel you're here to do? You clearly have a very strong idea of who you are now coming out of this. What's next for you? What do you feel what's calling to you?
What's next for me is, I just want to stay. My number one goal is to stay in line with source. That's my number one goal.
Yeah.
And my second goal is to lead my neighbors there, lead everyone else around there as well. And I can only guide. They're gonna have to walk through, of course.
Right.
But all through time, these masters or saints or anybody who's come down, or everyone has helped in somewhere, and then it gets misinterpreted along the way. I'm so glad that science right now is at a point where it's showing so much of the correlation between these things that the old masters have said and how they relate to in today. And science is just barely breaking the ice,
Yeah, barely scratching the surface.
Yeah.
But, we're blessed to be here at this time in our history, in our planetary history. And I want to thank you for coming on and sharing this beautiful story, making me cry. So few guests make me cry, but you did it. I'm just so moved by you, and I wish you all the best. And we'll have to have a conversation again after you get going and see where you are in a year or two and see what you've done with this work. I know one of your goals is just to bridge the gap for people between their real life and science and spirituality and the quantum realm and God. And there's just so many things that you can coalesce and bring together to help people bridge that gap between where they are now and where they can go once they embrace those concepts. And it's really not a dogma or a rule-based kind of framework. It's more of a interpretation. I kind of feel like you're really good at taking all of these concepts and bringing them together in a very understandable way, in layman's terms, where people can really hear and accept what you're saying.
I feel like it's very hard for people to turn the corner who can't have these things
Connect.
get together. It's very hard because you can't make the correlation of either one. It's only half.
The gap is so big, right? The gap is so big between the current reality and what's possible. It's hard for them to, and they're like, "How? There's no way I can get."
No way.
Here.
And not just all these different things, between the religion and the science and this and that, Christianity, spirituality.
It's so much. It's so much.
And people are still keeping us divided. We need to come together. We have to come together. This has always been the goal for it should be the goal for everyone, and to transcend because we still struggle with race and this country and that country, or that religion and this religion, which is ridiculous.
There should be no division. There should be cohesion and unity. But, maybe fine.
That was the biggest thing too when I was in the penitentiary teaching these things or speaking about these things, was the people who are really hard into Christianity or any religion. It was really hard for them to it feels right, but something's telling me no.
It feels right, but there's fear, right? Because they've been programmed to fear anything that's unknown, anything that's not taught by their religious leaders or their ideas and dogmas, and anything outside of that box. I've met a lot of people who are feeling called to know there's something more. There's something else. Their soul is telling them there's something else. But fear keeps them imprisoned and wrapped down so tightly that they're not allowed free thought. They're not allowed to seek without guilt or fear of being sent to hell or being punished or ostracized by their community. There's so much fear, and I don't understand how you can connect to God or that vibration of unconditional love where fear exists. So I think that's something that people should really examine within themselves. If you are feeling judgment, if you are feeling fear, if you are worried, afraid, you need to look at that. Is that the vibration of unconditional love? Is that the vibration of God? I don't feel like it is. I'm just going to say that straight up. It's not.
Yeah. And it's on both sides. People who've been hurt, who are on this side, who've been hurt by the church or something, they're on this side. They have that judgment towards them, and then Christianity or whatever.
Yes. There's definite judgment on both sides. It's not one-sided. It comes from both. I mean, judgment is judgment across.
Yes. And this is where the gap. This is where it has to come. This is where it has to be met. And I think it's coming. It's already rolling. You know, it's on its way.
Well, I think the more people that are coming online, you know, just like you're coming online, I'm seeing people in my circle and family starting to kind of come online. It's so beautiful to watch, like lights, you know, start lighting up around you. The more of us that come online and can be open about our journey and talk to people about what we've experienced, the ripple effect is just, it's so expansive, and it's going to multiply, and it's going to go out in such wider and wider circles that we can't help but tip the scale in some way, you know, by having these conversations. So Victor, thank you so much. It was such an honor to share this time with you today. I just enjoyed every moment of it, and I know the people who tune in are going to love this conversation. So I honor you. I honor the work ahead of you. I can't wait to see what's next. Do you have any parting words? Do you have any last minute things you want to share before we sign off?
No, just that I love everyone, and my heart wishes for you to walk your path and to realize that everything is exactly where it needs to be, and not to worry and not to have fear, but instead I want you to open up your heart and just love, and let love transfer through you. And judgment has to, there's no judgment on any of us. Someone who's walked such a dark path and a lot of dark things, if I can forgive myself, anyone can forgive themselves. Anyone, if I can raise my vibrations in the densest of places, you can raise your vibrations no matter where you are. Don't let your mind tell you any different. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. My listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been awesome having you along for the ride on the path of me. Please subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed our conversation. Be kind to yourselves, and I love y'all. Have an amazing day. Bye.
Bye.